Hello and welcome everyone to Shubbak Festival, one of the world's largest festivals of contemporary Arab culture. I'm Alia Alzougbi, and I'm speaking to you today from Manchester, and I'm delighted to be your host for today's event. So just a little about Shubbak before we kick off. Every 2 years, Shubbak Festival brings London audiences an amazing range of art and culture, online as well as in many places across the UK. Now, some of you may know what Shubbak means. It's an Arabic word, and if you know it, you can call it out now. But for those of you who don't know, Shubbak means window, and it's a window on Arab culture in the UK. So in June, July, just a couple of months ago, Shubbak ran its most recent festival. And we had theater, visual arts, music, and dance. So whichever of these art forms you're interested in and would be curious to see, you can find out more at shubbak.co.uk on our digital platform, What's Online. But today, we're here with two inspirational Arab artists in this webinar. And this webinar is called Intercultural Journeys, the last of 3 special webinars for young people produced with the support of Qatar Foundation International. So over the next half an hour, we're going to be traveling to Germany and Italy to hear from Mudar Alhaggi and Omar Elerian. And they're going to be talking to us about how they use multiple languages, including Arabic, in their art to reflect the diversity of our societies and to better represent the numerous cultural backgrounds and languages that make them up. So we'll spend some time with Omar and Mudar, who collaborated on the play, The Return of Danton. This was a play by Collective Maqluba, a theater company based in Mulheim in the west of Germany. The Return of Danton was featured at Shubbak Festival, and we were so proud to have been able to program it, because it stretched audiences' understanding not only of the Arab world, but of how we, as human beings anywhere in the world, find and define our place in it. And they have prepared such a special encounter for you. After we hear from them, there will be some time for questions and answers. So please formulate any questions that come to your mind. You'll see a button at the bottom of your screen that says Q&A. If you have any questions you want to ask Omar or Mudar, please, please, please write them there, or if you're with teachers or other adults, you can ask them too. And when you do ask questions, please type in where you're writing from. It's great that we have so many of you registered for today, and we'd love to know how many regions are here with us. I'm of course also delighted to welcome Rabira Dashi today, our British Sign Language interpreter, who is going to make this discussion as accessible as possible. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now and welcome our wonderful artists joining us today. Omar and Mudar, over to you.
Great, hello, hello. Mudar, you might want to unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
Hi, so I am Omar Elerian. I am a theater director. I am half Palestinian from my dad's side and half Italian from my mother's side. And I'm speaking to you from Milan in Italy, where I recently moved back to after almost 20 years abroad. I was first in France for 7 years and then in London for almost 13 years before returning to Italy, where I was born. And Mudar, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Hello, my name is Mudar Alhaggi. I am a playwright, a dramaturge, and I can say also director. I am Syrian originally. I came from Syria. I moved from Syria to Lebanon in 2013. Then from Lebanon in 2015, I moved to Germany. I became a refugee in Germany since 2015. And since then, I have been working in Germany as a playwright and dramaturge with collective Maqluba. Yeah, that's, I mean, in general, I always present myself as a playwright. So yeah, that was last year was my first, or before last year, my first encounter with Omar when we agreed to do this production together, The Return of Danton.
Yes, and so I was approached by Mudar and the collective Maqluba through a mutual friend. And at the time I was living in London, and we started working on Mudar's new project, which was called The Return of Danton, which is a play in Arabic that uses different languages on stage. It's basically the story of a company of Syrian artists based in Germany that are trying to put on a presentation of the Danton's Death, which is a German play by an author called Georg Büchner. And it's a very well-known play in Germany. It is a classic. It tells the story of Danton and Robespierre, two prominent leaders of the French Revolution in 1789, and how after the revolution they had different ideas on when and how the revolution should end, whether there should be a purge of all the sins of the aristocracy through the infamous guillotine, or whether at one point the revolution should settle and find a new order, including whatever was left of the previous regime. And this, of course, was something that within the Syrian revolution context was very interesting to react to. So I think part of the work was trying to find where there were parallels between the French Revolution and the Syrian Revolution, and where those parallels didn't exist, and what could be learned by restaging Buchner's play, or trying to restage Buchner plays, but also more crucially, what happens to artists in exile that are trying to tell their story back to themselves and to a new audience, an audience of German people who don't necessarily have the same knowledge or understanding of what has happened in Syria from 2011 onwards. Mudar, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I only just want to add that I have to say this production, I am in love with this experience, and this is why I have the poster here behind me. Maybe you see it. So like, and I will always keep it. That's it.
And maybe before we show you a brief extract of the play, it's worth telling you about the fact that the play, of course, was written in Arabic by Mudar, but my Arabic is rubbish, meaning that I grew up for brief stints of my childhood in Arabic-speaking countries, Kuwait, Egypt, and Cairo. But of course my vocabulary, my knowledge of the language kind of stopped at the age of 8. So that's more or less the level of Arabic that I have, which is not ideal when you have to do a full on 2-hour play. So part of the challenges, but also I guess the fun we had was to also bridge that gap. How as a non-Arabic speaking director, I could work with an Arabic text, with actors that would speak Arabic, but then when we would break for notes, had to revert to English, which was our kind of common language. All this in Germany, of all places. So with a German producer, German technicians. Our lighting designer is Israeli. Our set designer is British Iraqi. So there was an amazing mixture of languages and cultures and approaches in the room that, if anything, made, I think, the experience richer and more rewarding for everybody. So I think we can now show you the brief extract of the play. It's actually a part of the play that is in English, and it is the moment in which the one of the characters, who is the director of the play in the performance, his name is Eyas, has a phone interview with a German journalist that wants to know why they are doing this play. Or actually, as you will see, she's probably more interested in something else. But I'll let the extract speak for itself, and then we will reconvene in a short while at the end of it.
اوكي شباب، انا عندي تليفون مع صحفيه المانيه كتير مهم. اوكي حضروا مشهد المواجهه بين روبسبير ودانتون.
لك يا زلمه هلا وصلنا بدنا ندخن يا رجل. يا حرق اخت القصه معك.
Hello. Hello, Karina. Hi. Yeah. Ja, ich bin bereit. Yeah. Is it okay to speak in English? Okay. Yes, please. Yes. Yes, I'm here in Germany since 2015. Yes. No, I'm here alone. No, this is not my first project here in Germany. I do theater workshops with refugees, and we did many shows with German artists. Yeah. What? Sorry, can you repeat the question? Me? By plane. Yeah, by plane. Yeah, I came to Germany by plane. No boat, no. Yeah, sorry, no boat. Yes, Schengen visa. Yes. Yeah, sorry, Schengen visa. Yeah. Yes, it's very good for me to be here in Germany, working in German theater with German artists. It's amazing. يعني you cannot imagine how great it is. I mean, wow, awesome. and especially when you know why I'm doing the return of this project, the Return of Danton. Let me tell you why. Because when I okay, yes, sorry. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Now, theater in Syria. Well, mhm, I think it's very difficult to make a theater in Syria if you are not supporting Al-Assad. Yani. As example, I can't present the Return of Danton in Syria. Let me tell you why. Because if I present it now, ah okay, yes. Sorry, I didn't understand. Who? The refugees. Yeah. Well, I think I don't know if the refugees will come to see our show. I don't know if the refugees go to theater in Germany. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I don't I don't know. I don't know, Karina. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Uh-huh. My opinion? Ah, about what? Integration. Yeah, integration is very good. Very good integration. It's very, 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 very important. You know, I like integration. And especially when you know why I'm doing the Return of Danton, it's connected. Because when I do when ah okay. Ah okay. That's it. Okay. Okay, Karina. Okay. Okay. Goodbye. Bye. Bye. Bye.
choose. يلا شباب، جاهزين؟
يلا. قلت لك إن من يمسك بذراعي وأنا أجرد سيفي فإنه عدوي، ولا أهمية بعد هذا لقصده ونيته. إن من يحول بيني وبين الدفاع عن نفسي فهو يقتلني تماما كالذي يهاجمني.
حيث يتوقف الدفاع عن النفس تبدأ جرائم القتل. أنا لا أرى سببا يدفعنا على الاستمرار في القتل،
لأن الثورة الاجتماعية لم تنتهي بعد. من يكتفي من الثورة بنصفها يا دانتون يحفر لنفسه قبرا. إن المجتمع المرفه لم يمت بعد. يجب أن تلقى الرذيلة العقاب الرادع وأن تحكم الفضيلة عن طريق الرعب.
أنا لا أفهم معنى لكلمة العقاب.
Great. So that was the little extract of the play. And I think why we chose this bit was because in those 5 minutes, I think there is 4 languages spoken on stage. There is the colloquial Arabic that is being used by the company. You see them like in their rehearsal mode in the room. There is a bit of German at the top of the conversation on the phone because the journalist is German, and then the director asks to switch into English because he's a bit more comfortable with that language. Of course, you hear the English, and then when the scene actually that they are rehearsing starts, and you get to see them in full wig with the background, that is the original text translated into Fusha, which is a more kind of literary version of Arabic. which has been like a really interesting thing to work on. So not only the kind of colloquial Arabic that everybody speaks, but this kind of slightly more heightened old literary language, which gave a lot of problems to the actors. Mudar, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, exactly. This is, I mean, the whole story of the Return of Danton, it's a story of Syrian theater makers in Germany. And this is also the story of the collective itself. Since we are theater makers, Syrian theater makers based in Germany, so we are, we are working in Arabic, in our language, but we are addressing a German audience who does not speak Arabic, which is one of the most important things in our story as an artist who had to fled from Syria because of the situation, the war situation in Syria, and so on. And then we moved to Germany, and then the question how we continue our career as theater makers, how we do our theater. Should we try to be to act like to try to integrate, to be integrated in the German theater scene, or should we do our our theater in our way, in our language? So those kind of questions is still like it's we face it every day. But this is why I also think that somehow this is why we found the collective 4 or 5 years ago. It's about the artist, but it's also about the audience, because also there is here a big community of Arab audience who may they understand German, they communicate in German, but there is also the need to receive a theater in your mother tongue language.
Yes, and that was one of the biggest discoveries for me, I feel, also relating to my own personal experience of growing up in a mixed household, also growing up in different countries and having to, in a way, adapt or integrate into different cultures. The question is always there about, like, how do you not lose yourself when you change places? And language, of course, like food, for instance, is such an integral part of people's culture. And often, of course, to become part of society, we need to kind of take on new languages, new ideas, new ways of behaving, for instance, but there always is something in the background, which is your kind of mother or father culture that needs to be also kind of nurtured. And often I think we find those spaces in which we can hear different languages or experience different cultures being very, very few. For somebody of Arab extraction, it might be the mosque, or it might be, you know, after school, or it might be staying with some relatives. So for us, it's really important, I guess, in the act of making theater in Arabic and giving the language a status, you know, an importance, and asking people who do not speak the language to listen to it, to approach it, is a really important act. Sometimes not everything needs to be translated if there is a will to understand, to want to listen, to want to have an exchange. And I feel that's a really powerful thing that Collective Maqluba do as their kind of founding mission.
Omar and Mudar, thank you so much. I know that you have an exercise prepared for our participants. So if you share it now, and because for your information, Felukah has joined us. So
amazing.
Moving on to her next.
Great. So we'll give you this exercise, and you can do it in your time later with your teachers, with your colleagues, if you want. But basically, we wanted to riff a bit on that extract, and we thought, oh, wouldn't it be great if people could get into pairs and kind of try to interview each other in two languages, in two different languages. And the scope of the interview might be very simple. It's like, oh, you know, what's your name? Where do you come from? Just like some information, trying to extract some information from the other, and see how, by using two different languages, what are the problems and misunderstandings that might come up when you're trying to communicate but actually don't share a common language. So maybe taking 5 minutes to try that exercise, write down what kind of answers, when it was fun, where it was frustrating, might be a fun activity to do, to explore a bit this idea.
Great, that sounds like so much fun, trying to speak to each other in different languages. Omar and Mudar, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll bring you back in the end for a Q&A session. But for now, I want to check. Felukah, can you hear me? Just checking in that you can hear us.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Hello. Hello. We can hear you. If we can bring Felukah too, that's amazing. Thank you very much. And maybe give Omar and Mudar a bit of a break. Amazing. Felukah, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so glad you did. And it's a pleasure, everyone, to introduce Felukah, who's a rapper and who uses, just like Omar and Mudar, uses multiple languages in her music. So Felukah, can I just ask, I know you live between New York and Egypt. Where are you right now?
Yes, I'm in New York at the moment. I've been here for about a few weeks, but going back to Egypt again at the end of this month. So it is a very hybrid life, but you know, we're living it.
Yeah. And do you speak both languages, Arabic and English?
Correct, yes. And I'm currently learning French, and I'm trying to, you know, touch up on a lot of different things. I used to take Spanish, so I'm taking that. I'm diving back into that. And I really feel like language is the key to so much. I mean, it's definitely how we limit our thought, but it can also be how we expand our thought process. So I'm doing all I can to be thinking in as many different ways as possible, if you will.
Wow, that's such a great insight, this idea that, yeah, the more languages you have, the more kind of flexibility you have in seeing the world. And Felukah, my final question, before I hand over to you, I know you have a really great video to share and a great activity for the children, for the young people with us today. Felukah, what is that word and where does it come from?
So Felukah actually is a sailboat in Arabic that runs along the Nile River. It was around during pharaonic civilization. Pharaohs used to travel along these felukas, or falaik, if you will, along the river. And now in modern day Egyptian culture, it's just become a recreational activity we all enjoy, you know, getting on these boats to celebrate an engagement, a birthday, just being together is enough reason to get on a boat in the Nile and have some fun. So, and it's really just like been like a pinnacle of the Egyptian community and society, from all social classes, from all walks of life. We all have that in common, is enjoying Cairo like this.
Great. And so I'm gonna hand over to you. What do you say? Shall we play the video? Did you want anything else before then?
Sure. I think before we play the video, I would like to say, so this was one of the first videos that I ever created, like under Felukah, which is my stage name. And I think the best thing about that is, like, because it was one of the first things that I created or like helped direct, I like to co-direct my music videos with the people I work with. And we just wanted to make sure that the vision of hybridity, which is, being from more than one place, which essentially we all are. And I think when we're born, we're told that we are like of one nationality. We have a passport, we have these laws and these rules to remind us that this is who you are. But we're all flesh and bone that come from one earth, which is, I choose to believe in it a lot more holistically, where we are of this earth. And in Ask the Birds in Cairo, we're showcasing, we're filming in Egypt, but we're speaking the language of the Western world in addition to obviously our mother tongue in Arabic. Thus, I think that laid the foundation for like how I want to like carry out this entire artistic experience. So yeah, I'm cool to share it now. Should I share my screen and play it?
It's okay. We've got it all under control. So whenever we're ready, seeing the video.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Felukah on a wave, like, yeah. This one's for you. This one's for us. This one's for you. This one's for us. This one's for you. This one's for us. This one's for us. I stayed real restless for most of the night, tossing and I'm turning, waiting for daylight, waiting for my bite. I've been waiting for my right to crystallize this funk. Little miss, eat my haters for breakfast and lunch, yo. I'm in the sunshine now, drifting off the dreamland, let me chill with clouds. Don't need no cloud to take me upward, it's deep spiritual work. Unlearn your propaganda, unlearn your propaganda. Get me propaganda, if you please. You're dancing, if you want to. You're breathing, heart is pumping, and you're lovely in your hometown. Kobri Osrinil with the lowdown, I'll let you slow down. So lovely when you're working, and you're working, I'll let you slow down. Feel so lovely when you're working, still you're working. Do you hear it in my voice? Don't need to rise above the noise. If you hear me through my spirit, that's better than most. I said that's better than most, don't you know? عايزة أكبر، عايزة أفرح، عايزة أوصل للهلال، عايزة أكون في جسمي 100 والهواء دايما جامد. عايزة أكلم خالد ماسك قارد في الصالون وبرضه بارد، هو ساند على صورة of an ideal world. طول حياتها أمه شالت but I'm not her and I don't talk shit. How you even heard وانتي مالك yo. عايزة أفكر نفسي الطريق ماشي سالك، عايزة أفك نفسي وافرش شقة في الزمالك. Wherever life takes me, yeah. I fall in love daily with the words, with the language. Ask the birds, they understand this. In Cairo, I'm coming home to you, yeah.
بدون إذعان احنا ملوك الهيلمان، عبينا في برطمان احلام. ما تتقلش ما تخافش، اكمن الكشف مش محتاج علام. بدون الام شريط كتفلام، عالريق والسلام. بدون حمامة سابولنا القش سقعان، بدون دجاجة بدأنا نبش من غير قفش. بحكم الحاجة لقينا ايدينا في الكلبش، بدون اعادة بس بالتقسيط. قبنوري الارادة بالتسقيط، ضد المية وضد النار بدون حراسة. انتوا بوري على الطاسة وانا وقار، ماشي دايما بالكراسة مدمن افكار. ولو محتار خليني اقولك المفيد، جذوري اصلا بتحوم عند المحيط. لاقوني قصدا
Thanks so much for showing us this video. And Felukah, you deliberately use Arabic and English in your music. Can you tell us why? To what end?
For sure. It's funny because I think I actually, when I first started making music, which was 3 years ago now, I didn't even think about a conscious decision of how I was going to approach this linguistically, like with my words. I kind of just let it happen. And because I grew up in Egypt, which it's funny for a lot of people seeing that, I speak English the way I do, I get the references. I moved to Brooklyn, people were like, are you sure you're not from Brooklyn? Like, what do you mean? And I'm like, globalization is real, colonization is real. I spent so much time growing up learning the culture and the language of other cultures of the states of the Western world, that I grew up with that. So it's very interesting to think about. And I feel like a lot of people in this, you know, in this time can relate to that, because we are so globalized now and the internet is our friend. So we can learn essentially the backbones of any culture and any language. And rather than let that, you know, like hunker me down, I actually let it empower me. And I decided that this could actually expand my horizon, rather than not be Egyptian enough or not be American enough, whatever it is. Like I'm both of these things. For me, it was an effort to stay authentic to myself and just be who I really am, which is somebody who speaks in Arabic to my parents and my family, and then speaks in English to my friends as well, and listens to that music and consumes that media. And to stay true to that hybridity, I had to make music this way. What was interesting is finding the feedback from people saying, hey, I feel represented by that. But it's the Arabic, but by switching, because sometimes you can't find the words to express yourself enough in Arabic. Sometimes English just won't find the same essence, the same taste to something you're trying to say. And that's okay. I've learned that there are limitations to any language, to any code of communicating. And that's why the more that we expand and learn these different languages, we can sub these in and try and change that meaning so that it is tailored to how we're trying to express ourselves. So really, it's a freeing thing. And I think that, you know, a lot of people since then have been just excited about the movement of mixing these languages together. Rosalia, very popular singer, is doing that in Spanish and English. There's a bunch of now Arab artists and different multicultural artists that are kind of paving this way. And I think it's really cool to do, to be honest.
And I'm sure so many of our participants today actually really hear you, because they'll speak 2 or more languages. The UK is such a multicultural country, and people come from so many places. So it must be so reaffirming for some of our young people to be hearing you. And a reminder to all our participants, if you have any questions, start putting them in the Q&A button, because we will have just a little bit of time with all our artists. So whether it's a question for Omar, Mudar, or for Felukah, please put them in. But Felukah, I know you've prepared an exercise. We won't have time to actually run it, but if you talk us through it, then the teachers can take it away and run it themselves after the session.
For sure. So I guess what I had in mind was maybe looking at that exact song in Afs the Birds in Cairo and seeing how the verse exactly switches from English to Arabic. There's a part where I was saying, عايزة أكلم خالد ماسك قارب في الصالون برضو بارد طول حياته أم شالت, but I'm not her. And, you know, switching from that to that, I was going to encourage, you know, and suggest to see if students had other substitutes that they would bring into the mix, and how they would change the English version, how they would change the Arabic words to their own, you know, to their own taste. It really is just about rhyme. That's the interesting thing about rap and about writing poetry, is sometimes you can put the sound above the, you know, what you're trying to find words that sound like that. And that kind of also levels the playing field with language, so that we never feel pressured to choose, like, do I sound more sophisticated in English? Is this the more professional voice? Do I sound like an amateur in Arabic, even though I am Egyptian? These are all thoughts that I think will actually burden us and take away from our self-confidence. And we need to just trust that we can speak the way we think, and that this is good enough. Use both in your language, you know, be confidently sounding a bit amateur when you speak Arabic fully, like, that's okay. I'm here to tell you it's absolutely more than okay.
So using the rhythm of Ask the Birds to kind of insert your own language, using that kind of beat and finding your authentic voice through it. Don't worry at all about whether it sounds sophisticated enough or anything like that. It's just your space, your playground for that over there. Thank you so much, Felukah. And if we can bring Mudar and Omar with us into the space now for any questions that might be arising from our participants. I certainly have a couple of questions, but can I check, Fee, has anything come through?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so nothing's come through yet in terms of questions. I have a bit of a strange question for you all, because I know you all speak more than one language. Omar, I know you're a multilinguist as well, but my first question is to Mudar. Mudar was telling us that he moved to Germany as a refugee. And of course, Mudar, the first language you will have encountered, or maybe not, I'm making assumptions, but German, I hear, is a very difficult language to learn. And I wondered what your favorite word in German is.
My favorite word in German is ein Pause.
Ein Pause, okay.
Yeah, which means break.
Break.
So yeah, I'm always happy when I hear ein Pause, so it means I'm taking a break.
I think that you are all resonating so well with our young people today, because I'm sure the word ein Pause is now going to become part of the language, the extended language of our young people as well.
Yeah.
Love it.
Thank you, Mudar. Omar, I know that you speak so many languages, and I just wondered when you accumulated them. Was it as a child growing up, or yeah, tell us about your language journey.
I have a mixture of things, I guess. So at home, from a very young age, we would speak 3 languages because I was born in Milan, in Italy. But when I was 1, we moved to Kuwait for 4 years. And so at home with my mom and dad and my very young brother at the time, because he was born in Kuwait while we were there, we would speak Italian. But then there wasn't an Italian school, of course, so I was sent to an English kindergarten, nursery. So we would speak English at school. And then when I got back from home, but my parents weren't home, I would go downstairs to my grandparents, like my dad's mom and dad, who were Palestinian, and they would speak to me in Arabic. So when I got back to Italy to start primary school at 6, I had already like a lot of confusion in my head about which language to use. And then later in life, of course, I moved to France after I finished my studies in Italy. So I learned French. While I was there, of course, Italian and French are Latin languages. They're not very dissimilar in terms of grammar and vocabulary. So that was pretty quick pickup, and just by chance I started working a lot with a lot of Spanish speakers, so Spanish kind of got in as well. And again, it's not a huge transfer from Italian to French into Spanish. Then of course I went to London, so my accent, from being a bit more American because I lived in the US for a year when I was a kid, started shifting towards more Brit or transatlantic, as they like to say. And that's it. I know a tongue twister in Swedish.
We want to hear it.
So it's sex laxar i en laxask, which means 6 salmons in a salmon box. And that's about it.
Oh, thank you, Omar. This is great. A Swedish tongue twister. I didn't see that one coming. I have to say, you are full of surprises. A prolific theater director, Omar, even in webinars. Felukah, we've had a comment come from one of the schools, a school in West Yorkshire, that they immensely enjoyed your music. And we have 1 minute to go, but I wondered if you can give us your secret for enjoying while making your art, because making art can sometimes be a little bit stressful. You worry that you're not going to get it right. So what's your secret?
You know, I think one thing is really getting out of my own head and getting out of my own way. And the biggest thing I can do for myself is to trust my instincts when I'm making art, and to trust that what I feel deserves a place in this world, whether it's bad, sad, ugly, jealous, happy, euphoric, for any reason. Feelings are valid, and that's enough for you to just release that into your artwork and come back and revisit it and think about it too much if you want, whatever. But I think as artists, as creators, we need to express ourselves, let that happen naturally. Don't judge yourself in the beginning, and then you can come back later, share it with people, collaborate. But yeah, maybe get out of our own heads and not be so hard on ourselves. That's what I think.
What a beautiful note to end on. Get out of our heads, enjoy ourselves. This has certainly been an enjoyable webinar. Thank you so much. Thank you to the participants. Thank you to the artists. Thank you
so
our
much.
amazing BSL interpreter, Rabira, as well. And a huge thank you from Shubbak to everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.